excited to have you here to do a pendulum board with me. This is going to be fun. This particular exercise is less about artistic stuff and more about, I want to show you how easy it is to make your own divination tools and something that's really specific to you so that you can get more out of your tools. So that's what we're focusing on today. Although we can definitely make our own artistic version. I highly encourage that. Today's more about like the how to make one. And then of course, I'm going to talk to you about how you could elevate it even more. So what you're going to need today, you're going to need some kind of paper to work with. I'm working in this size only because it's really good for being on screen. You're going to need something round to work with. Now, I happen to have a piece of craft board here that I'm using, but a small plate would work really well. You just want it to be able to fit on your paper, and this one just happens to fit right inside this piece of paper. So we need something circular we can trace. Obviously, you're going to want a pencil. I'm going to use this red one so you guys hopefully can see my lines, and a pen. We're also going to want to have a ruler with us. And then I have a really cool trick I just saw this morning. It was like the universe was like, try this. And what we're doing is we just have a piece of string. It doesn't matter the length, although I would definitely say you want it to be long enough to go around your board. And a little thumbtack. Okay, let me get under camera. There we go. A thumbtack. And all I did was double knot the piece of string so that there was a big enough knot to stick the thumbtack through. And it's kind of like you're making your own protractor in a way. So this is going to help us draw lines when we do a more advanced chart. And I almost forgot the most important thing you're going to want to have with you, which is a pendulum. Okay. And I'm hiding this one on purpose because I'm going to show it to you a little bit later because this is one of the new pendulums I haven't released to my shop yet. So I thought I'd share that surprise with you in a little bit. So what we're going to start with is we've got our paper here, and we want to use whatever circular item to create our chart template. We're going to start by making a really simple, what's called a pendulum board. So ideally what you would do is be able to hang your pendulum over it, ask questions, and the board will have answers at certain places that your pendulum will follow a line on. So what we're going to do is just start with our pencil and go ahead and trace out your circle. Okay. All right. So once you have your circle, what I like to do is I'm going to take my ruler here, and my circle is roughly, it's almost 7 inches. It's a little smaller than that, but I'm going to try and find that middle point. So for me, it's about 3 3/4. I'm just making a little dot in the center. It doesn't have, and this does not have to be perfect, by the way, for this to work. So even though we are all used to those professional centered looking boards, as long as it's got a basic, a line that the pendulum can follow, it will work. Okay. So we find roughly the center. And now I want to show you this really cool trick with this. Here, let me get it on camera. The thumbtack and the string. So once you've got your thumbtack secured to your string, like I said, I made a double knot here, and then I just push the end of the thumbtack through it. And then I'm not even punching the paper here. I'm just kind of pushing down on that little center point I made. And now I can move this wire around, or the thread rather, around. So it's a little tricky once you start holding your pen in the thread, but what I found that works is actually holding the string taut and wrapping my pencil around it so that it's kind of bound like this. And I just sort of find the length that works for me. Okay, so you can do it this way. You can also just, if you feel more comfortable with the ruler, you can use that as well. I find that this one can be helpful for the more complicated line work we might be doing later. So I'm going to put that down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a cross right in the center of my pendulum board. So I found the middle, and I'm roughly just deciding, okay, this line right here represents the middle, up and down. Now I can see it's slightly off center, but like I said, it will still work. Okay. And then the same thing again, we're going to cut it in half horizontally. Okay. So this is a super basic board right here. This is what we would call like a yes and no board. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We can assign the value, meaning vertical is yes or horizontal is no, or you could switch it. I think for simplicity's sake, let's just assign right now that our vertical is yes. So what I do is I write yes at each end. There you can see it. Yes, yes. All right, and then of course you're going to write no on your horizontal axis at each end. Okay, so this is a super basic yes or no pendulum board. Now I want to do a little bit of I want to take a break from the drawing and go into a pendulum exercise. This should be pretty fun. First pendulum exercise that we're going to do, the first thing I want to do is check our placement, our body placement. So I'm assuming that we're all sitting down because we're at like a workspace, right? So when we're sitting down with a pendulum, we want to be clear that only one part of our body is touching the table. So I know we're at a weird angle here, so I'm just gonna lean in so you can see it. The only part of my body that should be touching the table is the elbow that's gonna hold the pendulum, and that's just to steady yourself, okay? So you don't have to get in an odd position, it's just I wanted to show you. So what we're doing here is we're gonna check the rest of our body. We want our feet flat on the ground. We want to make sure that no other part of our body is touching the table because that can bump it and create movement. The only part of our body that is touching the table is the elbow for stabilization. Now let's talk about our hand placement. So we want to use our dominant hand because that's our doing hand or the outgoing energy. And the way a pendulum moves is it's moving by little micro pulses from your electromagnetic field caused by your own consciousness. So this could be your highest consciousness, it could be your ego, which would be the lowest form of consciousness, or anywhere in between. But it's our consciousness that's moving the pendulum. And these little micro, it's almost like a tiny microspasm in the muscle, is faster than a thought coming through our head. So we want to use our dominant hand because that's an outgoing energy source. And the way that we're going to hold it is you can hold it at any length that feels good to you. So it's not, some people hold it close. Some people like to hold it all the way out at the end. I'm kind of a middle of the chain person myself, but you'll notice how I'm holding it is I'm using my index finger, my middle finger, and my thumb, and I hold it together like this. Let me give you a little tip on the reason why. Our hands also, each digit has its own electrical charge. This is really cool, and it's more complicated than this, but just to share with you, our Our index finger is a positive charge. Middle is a negative, which now you know why people flip that finger. The ring finger is a positive charge, which you know why we have the ring finger. And then the pinky is negative charge. The thumb is neutral. It's a neutral charge. It has both positive and negative. So when we hold the pendulum like this, we're getting a balanced charge. It's like using an entire battery, if that makes sense. So we're going to hold our chain with these 3 fingers. And the idea here is to use the lightest amount of pressure possible to hold the chain. So you don't need to squeeze. You don't need to squeeze tight. It's as light as you can before that chain wants to kind of slide and drop. So the first exercise I want to do, meal Coué test, and it's based on this little chart here, this plus and minus. What I want you to do is simply, without moving any part of your body, so make sure again, if your other arm's on the table, just gently place your hand on your lap. And I just want you to think to yourself, yes. It might take a minute. And I'm so sorry I can't get my camera under this. Hopefully you'll start to see it swing in a second. So again, you just think yes, and you can look at the line that says yes. And you'll notice, you can kind of see the shadow of my pendulum moving back and forth, up and down. You'll notice that the pendulum will start to swing along the yes line. Might be subtle at first, and then it starts picking up steam the more you think yes and look at the line. So once you get a really strong yes, it'll keep going too. The swing can get actually really, you can start seeing it coming underneath my hand now in the camera. There it goes. Yes, yes. And you can keep saying that too. It does work. It really does. All right. So once you get a really strong swing,
Yes,
now I just want
yes,
you to switch. There you go. Just keep saying yes, yes.
yes, yes. I have a question.
Yes.
Do my feet need to be flat on the floor, or mine are actually on a footstool?
Try putting them flat on the floor and see what happens.
Okay.
All right. You might see, like you're seeing mine really start to swing now. So, okay. So once you've established your yes, I just want you to change and say no, no. The pendulum might start to do things like circle, like mine is like, oh, I'm changing direction now. So it's like, it might start circling, and then you'll see no, no. Yeah, you can kind of see my pendulum underneath my hand here. It's starting to go no. I love you too, buddy. All right, no, 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 no. There you go. So you should see that directional change as you just talk to it and think about it. There's nothing else you have to do. No, no, no. All right, once you get it to do that, go ahead and say thank you, and you can stop the pendulum. Now, Rosemary, you asked a great question about the placement of your body. So what I want to show you is what's called the open and close exercise. So what I want to start with is, let's start with the correct position, so we keep reestablishing that in the mind. So again, let's get in that placement. Correct position is for sitting, you can have your elbow on the table. You've got the pendulum in your 3 fingers here, light as you can. Feet flat on the floor, and your body, the rest of your body is not touching the table. So we rest our other hand on our lap. And this is called the open position. So now, again, let's establish yes and see if we can get it to go on the line. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. Yes. So you can think it, say it, or just look at it too, and that should all increase that. There you go. So again, this is called an open position, and that's the correct position. So now I want to show you what it looks like when we close the body. So you can close the body in a couple ways. You can put like your other hand, I'm going to put it in screen, on the table, lean forward, cross your legs, like do something really, like cross your ankles and watch what happens. So I'm going to cross my ankles and I'm going to rest my other hand on here. And I'm going to try and see if I can move it. I might be able to, but let's see. Yes. Yes. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a total standstill now. And now it's saying no. And remember, and two, when you feel on the spot, if this feels like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to do this right now, that can cause you to sort of disrupt your own field because it's the nerves. So just remind yourself it's playtime. No one's judging you. On your own, when you feel more relaxed, you will definitely get this to work. So this is a basic yes or no board. We can enhance this. And in fact, when someone buys a pendulum, I send them a workbook and it has a more advanced board in the back. So I'm going to show you how to make your own. It's so easy. So while you're doing that, what you're going to do now is you're just going to make 2 diagonal lines, just crisscrossing the cross here. So I'm going to do my first diagonal as best I can. Let's see. I think that is correct. All right. So there's my first crisscross. And it's not perfect, but it'll still work. Okay. Okay. So now with these crisscross points, you can assign a value to each of these lines. So the classic assignments for these points are maybe and unknown are classic assignments. So I'm just going to make this line my maybe line. And yes, pendulums can be really vague sometimes because remember, depending on what part of our energy we're talking to, it may withhold information. If it's from our higher self and it's withholding, it's because it doesn't want to spoil something for us. And if it's from our ego and it's withholding, it might be for its own reason, like, oh, I don't want you to figure that out. So on the other axis, I'm giving that the unknown. This is an excellent pendulum board for any yes or no questions. And that's typically pendulums, when you ask a question, you want to ask a yes or no question. That's typically how they work. However, today, I'm going to show you a more advanced board where you can create a board to answer a specific question. Okay, so we will do that too. This is how easy it is to make. And then again, you can design it by painting it, drawing on it, make a beautiful piece of art, and then put the words at the points you want them. You can even elevate it by making it more permanent by taking something that's finished piece of paper, cutting it out and gluing it to this. This was a really cheap piece of craft board at Michael's. I got just a little thin piece of plywood. But if you wanted to make your own permanent board, you could easily do that. And then you'd always have a pendulum board to work with whenever you're doing yes or no questions. Sometimes it feels, for some people, they feel like they can trust it more if they can see it. Other people have an entire like communication and language with their pendulum. And so it's really a preference thing. You do not have to have one of these to use a pendulum, but some people really like it because it feels more specific. So I want to do another pendulum exercise with you, and then I want to show you how to make a more advanced pendulum chart that will answer specific questions. So I'm going to do one with you today to get you started. Okay. So the next exercise rather, I want to do with you is showing you how you can mentally move your pendulum in another way. Okay. So what we're going to do is let's clear this out of the way so that we don't feel like it's attached to this board. So I'm going to move my board out of the way. I'm going to make sure my feet are flat on the ground, that only my elbow is touching the table. I'm going to double check that I'm holding with my 3 fingers. I'm going to find that point that feels good. I'm holding it lightly. And now I'm going to close my eyes. And all I'm going to think about, and this is what I'd like you to do, is close your eyes and just think clockwise. And if you're a visual person like me, picturing the hands going around a clock helps, but just think and say to your pendulum clockwise. You can open your eyes to check if you feel movement. It might be a really tight, small circle, so just keep thinking and saying clockwise. And when you feel like you've gotten a really decent clockwise turn, okay, now close your eyes and imagine it stopping. So just tell it stop or imagine stop. Stop. You should notice after a couple of seconds that your pendulum is slowing down and it's coming to a stop. It might even come to a perfect standstill. Thank you, pendulum. Good job. Okay. And now, once it's fully stopped, now I want you to close your eyes and say and picture counterclockwise. After you start feeling it moving, you can gently open your eyes, continue to talk to it counterclockwise. And you'll notice that it'll start picking up speed, or it'll go wider. It should start after a few seconds. It can pick up steam. It can take a while too. This particular pendulum, it's new to me, so it is slow to pick up my cues, which is fine. And that's another tip. The more you work with your pendulum, the faster the result. And it's really important when you find the pendulum you love to not share it. Because it'll be infused with your energy and it becomes like a personal, it's like your toothbrush. You don't want to share your toothbrush. It's kind of like that. Like the more it's in tune with your energy, the better it works. So now we should have a pretty decent counterclockwise spin. This one is, like I said, it's taking its time to warm up to me. It's like, you're not my mom. It knows it's not really mine. So it's like, I don't know, maybe I'll work with you. There we go.
Mine is very long, and so I'm not really too sure what to do with the other end of it, and whether I hold my hand pointing down like this or more like that. I don't know if you can see my picture.
Let me take a look here. Let me see if I can open that screen. First, I would wrap the extra length. So I'm trying to pull it on camera. So you can wrap that extra length around the fingers just to kind of bring it into a more natural length for you.
Okay.
And then you're going to see that you naturally have a specific way of holding it, right? Okay. So again, resting the elbow on the table and allowing your hand to relax. So I'm going to try and switch so you can see how I hold mine. Okay. There's not a lot of, I'm not like this.
Okay.
It's a really, it's more of a natural bend like this. It's my wrist is barely bending, and you want to think about it like this. The impulse to the pendulum, it's coming down your arm. So I'm going up my arm, but it's coming down right from my head, through my shoulder, through my heart center, all the way down into my hand. So I really don't want hard too hard of an angle here.
Okay.
Okay, so it's really about comfort. If you feel like you're really like, you know, pronunciating the hold, relax your wrist and hold it more lightly. See if that helps.
Okay.
The board is a great way to tune up your pendulum, by the way. You can get it to go, just ask it, say, go yes, go no, go maybe, go unknown, right? And play with that. See if you can get it to move with you, just as an exercise to get you even more in tune with your own pendulum. All right, so let me show it to you first. I'm just going to preface it with, it looks like a hot mess, but remember, it's not about perfect. As long as it's legible and you can read it, it works. So this right here is a 15 answer board. Ooh. Very my own sound effects. By the way, as a person who is not, I don't have what you call a mathematical mind. My mind is way more artistic and abstract. So it is very hard for me to draw 15 equally spaced lines. So the fact that I even got close is like, I feel like it's a win. But here, let me show you the kind of board we're going to make today. And then I will tell you how you can customize it for whatever question you have next. Okay. So, and you don't have, by the way, before I get too deep into it, it's not this board or 15 questions. Please know there, you can vary this up quite a bit. This is just, I thought this was a really cool one to try. So I thought, let's go more advanced. Okay, so it starts the same way. We're just gonna make a circle on a piece of paper. So go ahead and grab yourself. You can flip the paper you're working with over, which I guess I'm gonna have to do because I'm at the end of my page. And then you wanna grab your circle template again. Okay, and it's that same beginning process of tracing your circle. Okay. And I'm going to try and walk you through how I figured out how to get to the 15 spaces. Because again, 15 is not an even number. So it creates a really, you have to be creative to figure this out. So I'm going to guide you through it as best I can. I feel like this little tool is going to come in handy for this one. So again, I want to do my best to find the center, and I'm going to make that little center dot again, best I can. Now, I found that the easiest way to do this without ending up with extra spaces was to make little hash marks before I draw my lines. It just saved me a lot of grief. I tried doing it the other way, it did not work. So first, what we're going to do is use our little pointer tool here. And I'm going to put that again, best I can, on top of this piece. I have to wrap my pencil around in the twine. Okay. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm making a little pizza slice. I'm making one hash here and one there. So I hope you can see that. I've made like these two hashes down here. Here's the center. All right. So that's my first two hash marks. And then the next one is pretty easy. It goes, this hash goes straight up from center. So I'm just going to use this paper to do it. But I find the center and I go right to the very top and I make a hash mark right there. Okay. And then I do that same thing where I'm kind of making a pizza wedge and I kind of I'm eyeballing it really. And I make another hash here and another pizza wedge on the other side of it. So you should have like 3 little hashes up here and 2 down here. Okay. Then I'm going again to either side of these hashes and I'm making like imagining another little pizza wedge shape. I do that little hash on the other side. This is how my brain works, by the way. So if it gets confusing, please say something, because again, artist brain. Okay. And then I'm realizing I need 2 hash marks right about here. Okay, more pizza wedges. So I'm putting them there. All right. And I am going to go back up here and find that I'm trying to make them equally spaced as possible, realizing that I'm not doing it precisely. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So we're getting close here. So we're making 15 dashes, by the way, just in case you're faster at this than me. So I keep adding a wedge on either side. That's how I've been building it, is I do the top and then I go back to the bottom and I keep counting in between. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that means I'm at 13, which means I'm going to put one more dash right here on either side. So when you have 15 dashes around the radius, you did it. Once I have those dashes, I'm going to prep that little pin again. Let's see. How did they? Yeah, I'm not good at this part. You're supposed to use the line as a guide to keep you going straight. Oh, I kind of did it. All right. Still not working. So I'm going to drop that because it's just not giving me what I want. And I'm just going to do the best I can, making a line from the center to my dash and just going around the chart. Again, you might have some that are thinner than others, and I think that's just fine. Once you have your 15 pizza slices here, you can then start numbering them. So I'm going to start kind of at the left-hand side, kind of the middle, and I'm just going to go 1, 2, and go all the way around the circle till I get to 15. You're working on that, let me tell you what the question is. And you know, when we're making a specific chart like this, I think it helps to put the question on the chart, because then we'll know what was this about and we'll know what question to ask while we're using our pendulum. So the question is, I'll say it quickly and then I'll say it slowly. Which chakra is blocked or should be cleansed? And by how much, meaning how much is it blocked? So it's which chakra is blocked or should be cleansed, and by how much? So you probably figured out we're talking about the 7 chakras, but we have 15 spots here. So, so here's how we're going to write it. We're going to start with number 1, and this will represent obviously the first chakra. So I'm just going to put first. I'm going to abbreviate. I know what I'm talking about. So first, and then we're going to add a little. And so that is the, how much is it blocked or need to be cleansed by? So just first and a little. And then when I get to the second one, I'm just going to put second, meaning second chakra. And again, a little. And I'm going to do this for all 7. So third spot, obviously third, a little. And I'm just going to keep going until I hit all 7.
So Therese, if you do more than the 7 chakras, you just add more.
Yeah, I feel like you could do that. I don't know if I'd even make 2 charts, honestly, because the smaller these things get, the harder it is to like identify which one your pendulum's going to.
Yeah,
but if I wanted to add like the ascension chakras, maybe what I do is like I do just the chakras on the chart, and then I would ask separately, like a lot, and I just do the yes or no, a lot, yes, no, and then get that answer. Okay, so then all the way through 7, so I'm at 6th and the 7th spot, and I'm putting a little. Okay, so when you have the first 7 done, it should say, first a little, second, and so on. When you get to spot number 8 on this chart, we're going to start again with the first chakra and then put a lot, a lot, and continue through each of the 7 chakras, writing a lot after it. Okay, and you're going to have 1 blank space after that. After that, 15 should be blank.
Can you write out the name? Because I'm not going to remember.
The name? Okay, yeah. So
like heart.
Sure. Okay. Yes, so I'll write them underneath it too. So the first one is root chakra.
Okay.
Your second chakra is sacral. Okay. Third chakra is your solar plexus. Your fourth chakra is your heart. Your fifth chakra is your throat. Your sixth chakra is your third eye. And your seventh chakra is your crown. Okay. And it's the same, and you can write that again if you want to write the names of each chakra underneath it. You could do that again, or you can just refer to the first time you wrote it. It will, your pendulum is going to recognize what it needs to answer. It's got that stored in your subconscious. So even if your consciousness isn't holding on to the names of each chakra, your subconscious already knows, and that's part of what's answering here. Okay, so in the 15th spot, we write none of them, because that is an option. It could be like nobody's blocked. They're all great and you don't need to do anything. So we want to give ourselves that option. So here's a couple of, before we use this, because I definitely, we got to use it. We got to get some answers. But I want to give you some ideas on other questions that you could phrase like this. Okay, so another idea would be, what essential oil is best for me? And you can list the ones that you have or maybe know of, or you can look for 15 oils that feel resonant and write them on here. I should say 14, because on the chart, you always want to have this one option that's like not on chart would be one way of saying it, or none of them is another way of saying it, right? There's so many cool questions you could ask your pendulum in this way. Like, for example, you could do like, what color is my power color? And write down all the colors except, and then of course, because there's obviously more colors than 15, you'd put like not on this chart if it wasn't listed. So let's say you didn't list chartreuse, right? Then you would just leave that in that not on this chart place. And then you could keep asking more questions if it didn't show up from your chart. Okay. So you can ask about supplements, like what supplement do I need right now? You can put all your supplements on your chart and ask your pendulum, which one do I need right now? There's just so many. You could ask, those are all sort of health related questions. You could ask personal development questions. You could ask business questions, relationship questions. And again, not every chart needs 15 spots. Some of them only need 5. Some of them need 20, although that would be a very interesting chart to try and draw. But I just want you to see that, because sometimes it can be frustrating when working with pendulums that you only can get yes or no answers. So this is a way to get specifics from one of the ways rather, to get specifics from your pendulum in a way that your pendulum can respond to. Now I've got my chart. Again, I want to put it up on camera. I want to go back to my placement. So I'm checking to make sure, are my feet on the ground? Yes. Am I checking the length of my thing? Is it right for me? Am I holding it with the correct 2 fingers? Is the rest of my body clear from the table? Once I've got that placement, I'm hanging it over the center. And I'm going to ask the question to myself, which chakra is blocked and should be cleansed, and by how much? You might notice that your pendulum is circling, like it's thinking, oh, interesting. So how do you know which one it's going to? Well, you'll notice that when you get your answer, what should happen is your pendulum, and it won't be exact, but you'll notice like my finger is going to be the pendulum. It started like this, like it made this little circle, and then it started to kind of swing from center out, and then back to center and out, back to center. It never overcorrected and went the other way. It just went center out. Okay, so what mine said is my crown chakra needs some cleansing by a little, just needs a little cleansing, which makes sense because I'm thinking really hard. So that's interesting. It might do something like this, where it swings to one, it'll say this one, this one, this one, and then it'll swing and it'll go this way, which tells me that the pendulum is like, this one needed it, and so did this one, right? That's usually when there's a couple centers that want attention. Let's talk about, okay, what if you got a blocked, if it showed up as blocked, what do you do, right? So then mine showed up as my crown chakra needs a little cleansing. So part of what I would do is I would use either sage, which I love to use, or actually I've got this baby right here. This is a piece of citrine. Citrine is a natural cleansing crystal. So I might put this on, put it on top of my crown chakra and just allow that to sit there maybe for like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, not very long, because it said it doesn't need a lot of help. So I could use a crystal, or honestly, I think saging is so powerful. I could just sage around my head just for like, again, like a minute or two when it's a little. When it's a lot, I would probably do the sage first And then I would either use the crystal, or I like to do a salt bath because salt is highly detoxifying. And I would just focus on, allowing all that, any blockages or negative energy to be cleansed from my body while in the tub. So that's the way I would handle it based on the information I get. That's it. I just wanted to show you all the cool things that your pendulum can do and fun ways for you to interact with it. I hope you enjoyed this class. I hope you had fun. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.